The first thing Nolan Whitaker noticed when he woke up was the light too white, too clean, and entirely wrong. Then came the smell, like hot plastic and citrus disinfectant. His head throbbed. His ribs ached. His leg. Oh hell, his leg. He tried to sit up and instantly regretted it. Don't move, a voice said, melodic and fluid, yet somehow grating to his ears. It belonged to something tall, bluish, and vaguely insectoid, although thankfully not too insectoid. It had no eyes, just a smooth face with a single horizontal slit that pulsed gently as it spoke. Muscular spasms detected. Your pain threshold must be dangerously overwhelmed. Nolan blinked, barely processing the words. Where? You were aboard the medical vessel Virexel en route from the crash site on Iatrax 6. Your injuries are extensive but manageable. He groaned, then winced. I just need something for the pain. The alien tilted its head. It had a name tag, oddly enough, written in both an alien script and English, Dr. Jhaek. I have begun a full systemic recalibration. Your nerve clusters are being remapped for optimal signal distribution. This will eliminate the pain permanently. Nolan stared. Wait. What? Dr. Jhaek turned to a console, its long fingers tapping symbols that shifted color as they pulsed on the screen. You will no longer perceive pain from your lower limbs. Additionally, I have initiated regenerative enhancement to reinforce bone density using a localized field matrix. We will begin the cortical interface installation in 20 minutes. I asked for a painkiller, Nolan said, voice strained as he clutched his side. Like a shot, a pill, something normal. You are in no condition to dictate treatment protocols, Dr. Jhaek replied, not unkindly. Human methods are inefficient. I offer transcendence of pain. I don't want transcendence, Nolan protested. I want a damn Tylenol. Dr. Jhaek paused, confused. That is a brand. Nolan leaned back against the inclined bed, sweat on his brow. Yes. And I'd take a whole bottle of them right now if I could. The doctor approached, scanning him again with a device that looked like a glowing tuning fork. You are experiencing compound fractures in your femur and 3 ribs. Internal bruising along the left lung. Administering a terrestrial painkiller now would only mask symptoms, delaying proper treatment. Nolan gritted his teeth. You said the injuries are manageable. So if they're manageable, just help me manage them. I don't need you rewiring my nervous system. Dr. Jhaek stepped away, murmured something in a language that sounded like wind through metal pipes, then returned. You humans prioritize temporary relief over long-term optimization. Curious. Yeah, we're weird like that, Nolan said, his voice dry. We also don't love it when someone slices into our nervous systems without asking. There was a pause. Then the doctor's tone shifted. Consent is vital to your species' medical ethics? Nolan nodded slowly. More than vital. Dr. Jhaek stood still for a long moment, then deactivated whatever was humming in the walls. The lights dimmed slightly. Very well. I will provide minimal analgesic support suitable to human physiology. However, I recommend reconsidering the cortical upgrade. I'll think about it when I'm not seeing double, Nolan muttered. The alien left the room and Nolan finally exhaled. His leg throbbed like a war drum, but at least no one was cutting into his brain. A few minutes later, a smaller alien entered, this one with a squid-like body that hovered slightly above the ground. I am Nurse Vel, it said. I have synthesized a pain suppressor compatible with your cellular matrix. Not ideal, but adequate. Perfect, Nolan said. Shoot me up. Vel extended a slender appendage and slipped a needle into Nolan's arm. Within seconds, the sharpest edge of the pain dulled into a background growl. He let out a long breath. Thanks. The nurse nodded, or at least did something approximating a nod, and left. Nolan was alone again, lying in a sterile cocoon of alien machinery, wondering how the hell he'd gone from a geology survey on an uninhabited moon to arguing with a space doctor about Tylenol. He closed his eyes. 3 days passed. During that time, he remained in the med bay, visited only by Dr. Jhaek, Nurse Vel, and occasionally a curious alien technician who poked at his chart like it was a puzzle box. The pain suppressor helped, but only slightly. Sleeping in the upright alien medbed was impossible, and the food nutrient gel with the texture of glue was deeply uninspiring. On the fourth day, Dr. Jhaek returned with purpose. "I have reviewed your species' pharmaceutical archives," it said. "I have acquired your Tylenol, though I remain baffled by the reverence it receives." Nolan blinked. "You actually got some?" Dr. Jhaek held up a small silver packet. Inside were two familiar red and white capsules. "I had to replicate the compound precisely. Took 3 attempts. Your liver enzymes are particularly sensitive." Nolan held out his hand. "I could kiss you." "That would be unhygienic," Dr. Jhaek said flatly. He popped the capsules in his mouth and swallowed dry. The placebo effect alone made him feel better. "Thank you," he said. "Really?" The doctor tilted its head again. "You still refuse the neural recalibration?" "Yes," Nolan said. "I'll tough it out, with help from Earth's finest over-the-counter meds." "Fascinating," Dr. Jhaek said quietly. "You endure dysfunction to preserve autonomy. That is statistically rare in our patient profiles." Then, without another word, it turned and left. Later that day, Nolan tried standing for the first time. The pain flared sharp and immediate, and he nearly collapsed. Vel caught him before he fell. "You are not ready," it said. "I need to move," Nolan groaned. "I've been lying here too long. The fracture must be stabilized longer. You may attempt limited motion tomorrow with assistance." Nolan nodded, sweating. "Okay, tomorrow." That night, as he lay staring at the ceiling, an alarm blared. Red lights flashed. The walls vibrated. "Emergency protocol initiated," a voice said overhead. "Hull breach imminent in Sector 7. His room shuddered. Nolan sat up, grabbing the side of the bed. "What now?" The door burst open. Dr. Jhaek entered, flanked by 2 armored aliens. "We must evacuate this section," it said. "Can you walk?" "Barely." "No time," it said, and without warning lifted him over its shoulder with surprising gentleness. "Whoa, hey, you will rupture tissue if you resist," the doctor said. "Remain still." They rushed through corridors as the ship trembled. Sparks flew from exposed conduits. Nolan could smell burning circuitry. Around them, crew members shouted in languages he didn't recognize. One wall cracked open to space before a barrier slammed shut. "What's going on?" A meteor swarmed from the Iatrax belt. Unexpected trajectory shift. "We were struck mid-rotation." They ducked into an escape pod. Nolan was placed carefully into a seat and strapped down. Dr. Jhaek sat beside him as the hatch sealed. "Don't you have other patients?" "None as stubborn," the doctor replied. The pod launched. As the main vessel shrank into the dark, Nolan gritted his teeth against the pain that came with every jolt. "You okay?" he asked. "I am undamaged." The pod drifted toward a nearby moon, uninhabited but breathable. Nolan passed out halfway through descent. He woke on soft sand beneath a pale sky. Dr. Jhaek stood nearby, scanning the horizon. Nolan groaned. "Where are we?" "Unnamed satellite of the Iatrax system. Oxygen-rich. Gravity slightly higher than Earth's. You will experience fatigue." "Great," Nolan muttered. The doctor turned. "Your leg has worsened due to the evacuation process. You will require immobilization and a longer recovery period." Nolan stared at him. "I told you. No nerve rewiring. Just set the bone. Wrap it. Give me more Tylenol." "You are an anomaly," Dr. Jhaek said. "Yeah," Nolan said. "I get that a lot." The sand was fine and pale, with a texture somewhere between ash and flour. It clung to Nolan's skin like a second layer, irritating the bandage wrapped around his thigh. He shifted his weight slightly against the rock he was propped against, and pain flared from deep inside his leg. The splint Dr. Jhaek had fashioned from a shard of the escape pod's interior frame held the limb straight, though not comfortably. Dr. Jhaek was hunched over a cluster of metallic canisters half buried in the sand. One had been cracked open and repurposed into a kind of miniature stove, atop which a flat, translucent disc sizzled faintly. "That's not food, is it?" Nolan asked. It is nutrient laminate compressed from survival rations. Rehydrated and heated, it mimics a protein slab. Looks more like a windshield. Dr. Jhaek didn't reply. Instead, it used a narrow blade to cut the disc into pieces, then extended one on the tip of a tool toward Nolan. He took it reluctantly, examined it with suspicion, and bit off a corner. It tasted like someone had tried to recreate grilled chicken based on a vague description offered by someone who'd never eaten before. It's chewy. Chewing stimulates saliva production, Dr. Jhaek said. Your species metabolizes nutrients more efficiently with mastication. Glad I'm not a plant. The doctor tilted its head slightly and said nothing. A gust of dry wind swept across the plain. The sky above them shimmered in gradients of lavender and slate, with 2 moons visible in the early dusk. The escape pod sat half-buried several meters away, its hull scorched but intact. A makeshift beacon emitted a pulsing green signal from its top. Any word from your people? Nolan asked. None yet. Interference from the satellite's magnetosphere is disrupting outbound transmission. I estimate 6 more cycles before reception improves. 6 cycles. Rotations of this moon. Roughly 22 Earth hours each. So I'm camping on an alien beach for the better part of a week. You will require daily wound inspection and hydration. Fortunately, the pod's reclamation systems remain operational. Nolan winced as he shifted again. My leg feels like it's trying to secede from the rest of my body. I will examine it after your protein intake, Dr. Jhaek said. You have consumed only half your portion. I think I've reached the emotional limit of what I can handle for today. The doctor rose and moved back to the pod, its long limbs folding as it stepped into the cramped interior. Nolan watched the sun, if it could be called that, dip below the horizon. The temperature dropped rapidly and the sand cooled beneath him. Later, as the night deepened, Dr. Jhaek returned with a thermal blanket and a small instrument that projected a dome of mild warmth over their immediate surroundings. Remove the splint, it said. Why do I feel like this is going to suck? Because it will. Nolan braced himself as the splint was loosened. The pain came in waves, deeper now, more insistent. Dr. Jhaek peeled back the bandage and examined the swelling. Internal bleeding has stabilized. However, your body's inflammatory response is inefficient. Welcome to being human. The doctor cleaned the wound with a foamy blue substance that tingled, then began applying a fresh wrap embedded with tiny metallic threads. This mesh will encourage cellular cohesion. It is not invasive. Appreciate the clarification. Once the new bandage was in place, Dr. Jhaek set the splint again and secured it tightly. You are healing, but your body resists acceleration. The fracture will require at least 15 Earth days without further trauma. I'll try not to get into any foot traces. The doctor didn't acknowledge the joke. It stood and moved toward the edge of the camp where a small scanner sat atop a rock. The screen flickered with static. Nolan leaned his head back and stared at the moons. You ever get tired of saving people who don't want your help? Dr. Jhaek didn't turn. I do not perceive aid as a desire. It is a function. Like respiration. Well, your function saved my hide. You preserved your own by refusing neural alteration. I call it stubbornness. My mom called it a learning disability. Dr. Jhaek returned to the warmth dome and sat, folding its limbs beneath itself like a massive bird. For a while, neither of them spoke. By the time the second day arrived, Nolan was hobbling short distances using a crutch fashioned from a length of piping and a padded clamp. Dr. Jhaek insisted on timed walks, brief but increasingly frequent. On the third day, they found something. Nolan had wandered to the edge of a shallow ravine while testing his balance. The sand gave way and he tumbled halfway down before catching himself on a flat outcropping. Jhaek, he called. Within moments, the doctor was there, peering down with a mixture of concern and what might have been exasperation. You were instructed not to exceed the perimeter. I didn't. The perimeter exceeded me. He pointed. But look. Embedded in the rock face a few meters below was a metallic object, glinting faintly beneath layers of dust. Dr. Jhaek climbed down with delicate precision, brushing away debris. It was a panel about the size of a suitcase covered in alien script. "This is not native to the satellite," it said. "Something crashed here before us? Or landed deliberately?" Nolan grunted. "Guess we're not the first tourists." The doctor pried the panel loose. Beneath it was a narrow tunnel descending into darkness. "We return to camp now," Dr. Jhaek said. "Wait, you're not curious what's down there? My priority is your recovery. But we're stranded. That thing might be a way off this rock." The doctor hesitated, then turned and began the slow climb back up. Nolan followed, wincing with each step. That night, Nolan couldn't sleep. The warmth dome cast a soft glow, and the stars above looked like they'd been spilled carelessly across the sky. He glanced at the panel lying near the scanner, then at the tunnel entrance in the distance. "Jhaek," he said, "what's the worst that could be down there? A trap? Space ghosts?" "There are no ghosts," the doctor said without looking up. "Then let's check it out tomorrow. We are not equipped for subterranean exploration. You've got scanners. I've got a crutch. You also have a compound fracture, which hasn't stopped me from falling into holes or arguing with you about painkillers." Dr. Jhaek stared at him for a moment, then nodded once. At first light, the next morning they descended together. The tunnel sloped gently and opened into a chamber lined with smooth walls. Strange glyphs pulsed faintly along the surface. A pedestal stood in the center, atop which sat a spherical object humming with energy. "Does this look like a distress beacon to you?" Nolan asked. "It's a data node. Very old. Possibly pre-Exodus era." "Exodus?" "An ancient exodus from this region of space. Details are scarce." Dr. Jhaek reached toward the sphere. As its fingers made contact, the glyphs brightened. A voice filled the chamber, low and melodic. Neither of them understood it, but it carried a weight that made the air feel thicker. The sphere dimmed again. "What did it say?" "I cannot translate. I will require time to analyze the signal pattern." Nolan sat on a nearby ledge. "Well, at least we found something to do while waiting for rescue." Dr. Jhaek picked up the sphere. "Your insistence on motion, despite injury, has once again led to discovery. I'm just trying not to go insane. You were succeeding in being unpredictable." Nolan grinned. "Welcome to dealing with humans." The fourth morning brought a pale mist that clung low to the ground and made every movement feel like trudging through half-set jelly. Nolan sat on an overturned section of the escape pod's inner paneling, leg braced awkwardly, poking at the now-cold protein slab with the end of a salvaged screwdriver. Dr. Jhaek knelt beside the data sphere, its thin digits adjusting a cluster of field emitters arranged around it like petals. The glyphs along the sphere's surface pulsed steadily now, no longer reacting to touch but shifting in tempo with the emitter's modulation. "Any luck pulling a translation?" Nolan asked. "Partial. The syntax resembles pre-expansion dialects of the Kevlan Accord. I've isolated several repeated fragments. Let me guess, unauthorized life forms will be vaporized?" "No," Jhaek said without looking up. The primary phrase translates loosely to "we linger where memory fails." It is unclear whether the message is a warning or lament. Nolan scratched at the stubble on his chin. "That's comforting." The doctor adjusted the outermost emitter and tapped a control node. The glyphs stopped pulsing. The air felt lighter. "You shut it down?" I paused the transmission. "Its resonance was interfering with our distress beacon. That may be why no one's found us yet." "Well, that's a fun twist. We've been ghosting ourselves." "I will recalibrate the beacon's output. It should now cut through the interference." Nolan leaned back on his elbows. "Any idea what that thing's for?" "Possibly a historical archive. Possibly a warning node. Possibly both. You're not ruling out haunted space, Tomb. There's no empirically supported evidence for hauntings. Just let me have the theory." They spent the rest of the daylight cycle reinforcing the shelter. With the temperature swings between day and night, the thin tenting from the pod wasn't cutting it anymore. Dr. Jhaek suggested building a partial wall using sedimentary rocks nearby, while Nolan insisted they at least try insulating with the foil blankets from the pod's interior. By early evening, A windstorm rolled in from the east, scattering half their tools and nearly taking the beacon with it. Nolan dragged a tarp across the entrance and weighed it down with a tool crate while Jhaek anchored the beacon deeper into the ground. The gusts passed an hour later, leaving behind a sky streaked with greenish light that flickered along the horizon. "They ever teach you how to build a rock wall in med school?" Nolan asked as they reassembled their scattered supplies. "No, I am improvising. Poorly." The human laughed, then winced as the motion tugged at his ribs. "You require another dose," Jhaek said, reaching into a pouch on its side. "The inflammation in your thoracic region is returning." "Yeah, I noticed," Nolan muttered, taking the capsule offered. "I don't suppose you've figured out how to make coffee out of sand?" "No, but I did locate a root specimen with mild stimulant properties. It is unpleasantly bitter." "Sounds like coffee." They worked in silence for a while after that, Nolan organizing what was left of the pod supplies, Jhaek scanning the nearby hillside for any signs of movement or signal bounce. As the twin moons rose, casting long shadows across the sand, a sharp beep from the beacon shattered the quiet. Jhaek hurried to the console, fingers flying across the controls. "It's responding," it said. Nolan stood slowly, favoring his good leg. "Who is it?" "Medical cruiser Cyrith. They received our beacon. Estimated arrival in 13 hours. Thank every star in this system," Nolan said, exhaling hard. "They got room service on those cruisers?" "They do not. But they have full medical facilities." "Good enough." The next morning arrived sluggishly, the air thick and oddly metallic. Nolan packed up what little he'd laid out, folding the foil sheets and organizing their meager supplies into a single crate. Jhaek shut down the emitters and wrapped the data sphere in a thermal layer. "Think your people want that thing? It is of considerable archaeological value. The Cyrith has containment protocols. Make sure they don't turn it on again." "I don't want to die of poetic ambiguity." When the cruiser finally arrived, it descended like a falling star, its hull gleaming with soft blue light. A ramp extended, and 2 crew members in dark gray uniforms emerged, their movements efficient but not hurried. One of them, a towering being with translucent skin and visible muscle striations beneath, approached Jhaek and extended a hand in a gesture Nolan didn't recognize. "Dr. Jhaek, your report was received. We are prepared to transfer both subjects." Nolan waved from his seat on the crate. "Hey there. I'm the both. You got a wheelchair?" The second crew member, a shorter, fur-covered alien with a flattened snout, produced a hovering gurney from the side compartment of the ramp. "Elevated support requested," it said. "Now we're talking," Nolan muttered as he was eased onto the gurney. Inside the cruiser, the air was cleaner, crisper, and filled with a faint hum that instantly gave him a headache. Jhaek walked beside him, holding a small tablet displaying his vitals. "I have updated the medical logs. Your leg is stabilizing but will require a full scan and likely a surgical pin." "Let me guess, your version of a pin is a quantum-threaded bone lattice?" "No, a titanium rod." Nolan blinked. "Really? Sometimes the simplest option is the best." The gurney glided into a medbay filled with softly pulsing equipment. A technician moved to assist but paused when Jhaek raised a hand. "I will oversee his treatment." The technician nodded and retreated. Nolan glanced around the room. "This place looks like someone designed it while sleepwalking through a light show." "You will be sedated shortly," Jhaek said. "The procedure will take 40 minutes. Post-op, you will recover in gravity-neutral suspension." "Sounds peaceful. Pain will be minimal. No neural interference." "Glad we got that part sorted," Nolan said. Jhaek adjusted the controls on the bed. A faint hiss filled the air. "Why'd you stay with me?" Nolan asked. "You were severely injured." "Yeah, but you could have left me in the pod and waited for pickup. You refused non-consensual intervention. That made you my responsibility." Nolan's eyes grew heavy. "We're a real pain in the ass, huh?" "Only intermittently." He tried to laugh, but the sedative caught him first. When he woke, the pain was gone, Not dulled, not masked, simply absent. His leg was encased in a lightweight brace that buzzed softly, and his ribs no longer burned when he breathed. The room was quiet. Jhaek stood at the far console, reviewing something on the screen. Wasn't dreaming, was I? Nolan asked. No, he sat up slowly. And the data sphere? Contained. The Archaeological Council has been notified. Well, Nolan said, stretching his arms, guess this is your stop. I am returning to my post. Back to saving people who don't want saving? Back to offering help. Whether it is accepted is secondary. Nolan reached out and patted the brace on his leg. You did good, document. Jhaek gave a slow nod. You endured more than most patients would have. Humans are good at that. Enduring. Usually with complaining. You also recover faster than expected. Despite your own predictions. Yeah, well, Nolan said, settling back into the bed, sometimes we don't know what we're capable of until there's no other option. Jhaek turned to leave, pausing at the doorway. I will submit a report to the Interspecies Medical Review Board. Your case may influence future protocols. Nolan raised an eyebrow. You're gonna tell them about the Tylenol? I will recommend optional terrestrial analgesics be included in standard kits. Well, I'll be damned. The door slid shut behind the doctor, leaving Nolan alone in a room full of blinking lights, clean sheets, and the hum of machinery that, for once, didn't feel threatening. He sank deeper into the bed, closed his eyes, and smiled. Finally, something felt normal.